to Cornwall Seal Group Research Trust's virtual conference, Sharing Our Seas, Seals and People. We are excited to share an inspirational series of talks exploring a variety of aspects of seal conservation in the UK. And it's our 20th birthday. In that time, we've done 35,000 plus surveys, processed over 1 million photos for 72,000 plus seal IDs. To make sure we can continue this important work, check out our website to join our Wild Seal Supporter Scheme, back our crowdfunding campaign, or shop in our online store. Thank you for your support.
I'd firstly like to thank the Cornwall Seal Group Research Trust for inviting me to give this talk, and also to congratulate them on their 20th anniversary. The achievements of Sue and the team over the last 20 years have been truly inspiring, and they are to be congratulated on their success. For my own part, since leaving what was the Animal Health and Veterinary Laboratories Agency 7 years ago, I've been carrying out the post-mortem examination of marine mammals, including seals, on the University of Exeter's Cornwall campus in the Environment and Sustainability Institute. These examinations have been carried out with a team of dedicated volunteers at evenings and weekends, to whom I'm truly grateful. And I'd like to share with you today what we've learned from the post-mortem examinations specifically of seals. First of all, having a look at the numbers of seals examined, we've carried out 108 post-mortems. One seal we excluded from the data set straight away because it was quite clearly, even before we started the PM, that it was an iatrogenic cause of death. That's the cause of death of an animal in care, if you like. So looking at the 107 remaining animals, 54 were females and 53 males. So virtually a one-to-one split. 81 of the seals had not been frozen before examination, whereas 26 had been and were thawed out subsequent to the post-mortem examination. And of the 107 seals, 67 were originally found alive and 40 were originally found dead. Looking at the ages of the seals, the age class was assigned on the basis of the presence or absence of a lanugo coat, the nose to hind flipper length compared with reference age length data, and the month that any young seals were found in relation to the peak pupping season. The classes were assigned as pre-molt pups, molted pups, which we called molters, juveniles between 1 year and sex and maturity, and adults. As you can see, pups in the first year of life accounted for more than 3/4 of all the seals examined, and only 6.5% were juveniles and 10% were adults. This may in part be explained by differing survival rates, with mortalities as high as 60% reported in pups in some grey seal populations. But it could also reflect the logistics of carcass retrieval, because large animals are much more difficult to pick up from the shore. Looking at the seasonal distribution of post-mortem examinations, this was very much influenced by the monthly distribution of first-year pups, with pre-molt pups only being received between August and November, peaking in October, consistent with the known peak of pup production in Cornwall. And then most molters, i.e. non-pre-molt pups, but still in the first year of life, being received between the months of October and March, generally, with a few stragglers. The vast majority of seals were received from the coast of Cornwall, and within Cornwall, most seals were from the northwest part of Cornwall, and to a less extent, the southwest part. 2 of the 6 largest haul-out seals for grey seals in Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly are situated in northwest Cornwall, and the remainder being near Boscastle and 3 on the Isles of Scilly. And these seals are particularly inaccessible in caves and on remote uninhabited islands, respectively, which making it logistically very difficult indeed to get reports of seals that are found dead or in distress, or even if they are reported, the difficulty of retrieval and transport. Going on to what we found on post-mortem examination, the primary pathological finding was trauma, accounting for nearly half of the seals examined, followed by infectious disease in about 1/3 of the seals, and then a smaller number of causes of death or primary pathological findings that couldn't be categorised into trauma or infectious disease, and also a number of cases where the primary pathological finding could not be established. Interestingly, nutritive state and primary pathological finding were associated statistically, with seals with a primary pathological finding of infectious disease being more likely to be found in poor nutritive state. There are probably sort of 2 potential explanations for this. Animals with infectious disease may well have reduced ability to feed and maintain their nutritive state, or conversely, malnourished seals are immunosuppressed and therefore more susceptible to infectious disease. It's quite likely that these scenarios play out to different extents in every single case. Looking at the primary pathological findings in more detail, of the 49 cases of trauma, 15 were fisheries related, of which 12 were believed to be known or inferred cases of bycatch. As far as the 4 known cases are concerned, these were retrieved from inshore waters. 2 seals were observed actually being hauled in a net, and 2 were found wrapped in monofilament netting, with linear marks in the pelage, and in 1 seal the gums as well, and persistent froth in the airways and lung congestion, that's pulmonary congestion, which are all findings seen with bycatch. In the 8 cases of inferred bycatch, the seal was not actually observed being hauled and no netting was found on the animal. However, all 8 seals were in moderate to good body condition, and gross and histopathological changes were consistent with bycatch, the finding including combinations of muzzle, eyelid and webbing abrasions, faint linear impressions, marked lung congestion, froth in the airways, and evidence of recent feeding. And hopefully you can see in these sketches, sorry, these photographs below, the abrasions on the flippers in the eyelids in the seal, and also the faint lines in the pelage of the seal in the bottom right-hand corner. Obviously, the top right-hand picture is very clear as to what's going on. Moving on to entanglement cases, these 3 animals that we saw were also all found in netting. However, there was evidence of chronic trauma and infection associated with the net. All 3 seals were in poor body condition, and the injury was primarily around the neck. In 2 cases associated with monofilament netting and 1 with multifilament netting, which is this horrendous case in the top right-hand picture. This seal actually had 35 kilos of net attached to it. In 2 seals, the wound had not healed and penetrated deep into the underlying muscle, and in the 3rd seal, the wound had partially healed, embedding the net in the sinus deep within the tissue, and you can see this quite clearly in the left-hand picture. Moving on to other types of trauma, these can be broken down into 2 types, other acute traumas and other chronic traumas. Most of the other types of acute trauma involved the neck and included soft tissue hemorrhage and edema, fractured cranial bones, that's bones of the skull and the jaws, intracranial hemorrhage, i.e. within the skull over the brain. And then there were 3 cases involving the abdomen and the chest, 1 associated with hemothorax and fractured ribs, that's blood in the chest and fractured ribs, hemiperitoneum, which is hemorrhage into the abdominal cavity, and in another case there was evidence of torn abdominal muscles. As far as other types of chronic trauma are concerned, and you can see there's 19 cases of these, the findings were primarily associated with skin wounds initially, but a number of cases were also initially associated with oral trauma. So in the oral trauma cases, we saw things such as gum ulceration and regression, glossitis, which is inflammation of the tongue, and then we saw abscesses, as in this top right-hand picture, cellulitis, purulent arthritis, and tenosynovitis, as in the bottom left-hand picture. So tenosynovitis is infection of the and inflammation of the tendon sheaths. Often these cases progress to osteomyelitis, and some of them progress to septicemia and meningitis. Moving on to infectious diseases, of which there were 36, quite a large proportion of these, 21 in fact, were respiratory in origin. And particularly, we saw evidence of parasitic bronchopneumonia. That's pneumonia associated with lungworm species. The 2 lungworm species found in seals are Otostrongus circumlitis and Paraphilaroides gymnurus. And quite often there was evidence of secondary bacterial infection. And you can see a good picture here, top right hand, of Otostrongus circumlitis, the large lungworm species found here in the tracheum bronchi of this seal. Other cases included primary bacterial pneumonias. We also had a very novel pulmonary vasculitis, that's inflammation of the blood vessels of the lungs, which is the bottom left-hand picture, which is a histopathology shot. And this was so novel that we were able to write it up for publication in the Journal of Comparative Pathology last year. And then other cases included pulmonary thromboembolism and pyothorax. And a good shot of pyothorax is in the bottom right-hand picture. You can see the pussy fluid there in the chest cavity. And the main other group of infectious diseases was gastrointestinal disease. And the vast majority of these were associated with gastric ulceration caused by ascarid worms. Here we had evidence of gastric ulceration. You can see a good shot of this in the bottom left-hand picture with hemorrhage. and in some cases full thickness perforation of the stomach wall with secondary peritonitis. You can see a perforation in the bottom right hand picture, that sort of spherical area in the middle there, which is actually where the mucosa is curled round, with evidence of perforation through to the peritoneal cavity, and you can see a few worms in association with that. And then in some cases they went on to cause peritonitis. And the top right hand picture, this is a seal pup with these ascary worms, the worms you can see in the bottom of the picture, and large amounts of gut contents and inflammation associated with those gut contents, covering the viscera, the internal organs. Because of the potential for inclusion of seals with potentially iatrogenic conditions, that's conditions occurring during care, the use of data from post-mortem examinations on seals undergoing rehabilitation carries an inherent risk of not reflecting causes of mortality and morbidity in the wild. However, when primary pathological findings for seals found dead or that died or were euthanized on the day they were found were compared with those that died or were euthanized later on during the first week of rehabilitation, no significant associations were found, and that's what's illustrated in this graph here. A chi-square test showed that this was not significant, and therefore the conclusion from this would suggest that the data from seals in early rehabilitation is valid to use when assessing pathology in wild grey seal populations. This obviously goes with the caveat that there is careful scrutiny of the cases in order to remove those cases where iatrogenic conditions cannot be ruled out. And we found on careful scrutiny of the data that there were probably 2 cases out of the 107 seals where the conditions found were probably or potentially iatrogenic in origin. It's a very different story when one looks at frozen seals compared to non-frozen seals. Here there are positive associations with more infectious diseases found and trauma cases found in non-frozen seals. Certainly the lack of histopathology on frozen seals is likely to be one factor in this difference, because carrying out histopathology on seals that have been thawed out is really a waste of time. But also the masking of subtle signs of trauma in thawed out pups, because you get widespread artifactual changes associated with this, including pseudo bruises and other evidence of hemolysis, which really can look very like trauma, and therefore there's a natural tendency to put it down to artifactual change rather necessarily than real trauma. So whenever possible, I think the conclusion from this is really we should be trying to examine seals that haven't been frozen beforehand. Despite these limitations, useful information on the pathology of seals has been found, we think, in southwest England from looking at both rehab seals and seals found dead. And it's clear that infectious disease and trauma account for the majority of primary pathological findings. So it does illustrate the potential contribution that seals, pups in early rehabilitation, can make to our understanding of the pathology of wild grey seal populations. So in conclusion, I just want to thank very much to everybody for listening to this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed it, but really I want to say thank you to all those who helped me with the post-mortem examinations. And there's a large number of different people involved. Cornwall Wildlife Trust, Marine Standards Network, hotline coordinators and recording volunteers are an essential part of this process, and those for achieving the seals for post-mortem examination, and the many volunteers that assist me with the post-mortem examinations. I'd also like to thank the University of Exeter, the APHA and fin pathologists for their assistance with the investigations, and also Bex Allen for her help with the statistical analysis. And you'll be pleased to hear that we're writing this up for hopeful publication. Thank you.